Welcome back, Cloners, to another gameplay by your friendly neighborhood clone slinger. Today from the Clone Forge, we have a gameplay of everyone's favorite $5 or less format, Peasant. Quick question before we begin. How are you not supposed to play Peasant? Multiplayer. How did we totally play it? That. Just in case you wanted some kind of Commander-Peasant hybrid, I guess. For this game, we have Chris on the right of your screen playing Orzhov Aggro. Nancy is at the koala mat of your screen playing Naya Slivers. And I am playing Azorius Metalcraft. Yeah. And if you're into opening hands, you might enjoy this next part. Chris's opening hand. Nancy's opening hand. My opening hand. Nancy begins the game playing Blossoming Sands, gaining 1 life. Chris does the same thing on his turn, gaining a life with Scoured Barrens. I play an Ancient Den land artifact, and then get a 2/2 creature artifact with Court Homunculus. Nancy casts Sinew Sliver on her turn. Chris plays a second Scoured Barrens, gaining another life, and then casts Nip Gwillion. He should have his own catchphrase, something like Nip Gwillion. Just the nip. I cast and equip Bone Splitter to my guy and then attack Nancy for 4. Nancy again gains another life on her turn with Blossoming Sands and then casts a second Sinew Sliver. Nancy then attacks Chris for 3 with her sliver. Chris casts Morning Thrall and makes it 4/4 with Edge of the Divinity. He then attacks me for 1 with his nip and he gains 1 life. I attack Chris for 4 on my turn, which he takes. Still sorely needing blue mana, I cast a second Court Homunculus instead, but forget to equip it with Bone Splitter. Speaking of Bone Splitter, that's the sliver Nancy casts on her turn. Nancy spreads the love with Chris and I, both taking 5 damage from her attack. Chris retaliates by attacking Nancy for 4 and 4 life for him on his turn. On my turn, I finally get a blue mana. I attack Nancy for 4 and Chris for 2. I then cast my elephant, Galma's Warden, who is Ella Big. On Nancy's turn, her slivers get so much bigger with Might Sliver. Now, she could have killed me by swinging all out, but instead decides to spread out the damage again, sending 2 at me and 1 at Chris. Chris blocks with his nip, and I block with my Warden. I take 7 damage, and Chris gains 1 life. Post-combat, Chris casts on Make to exile Might Sliver, which also kills the Bone Splitter I blocked due to state-based effects. Chris also spreads out the damage on his turn, attacking Nancy for 4 and again gaining 4 life, and casts Voracious Hatchling, who gets bonuses the more white and black spells Chris plays. On my turn, I cast Preordain under the hopes of getting a second blue source, which I don't, and then attack Chris for 6, which he takes. I then cast Auriok Sunchaser and equip it with Bone Splitter. On Nancy's turn, she casts Rugged Highlands and gains 1 life. She doesn't cast another Might Sliver, but she does cast a Muscle Sliver and a 3rd Sinew Sliver, which is basically the same thing. Hey, what do you think these guys would say if they met in a bar? Have I seen you in here before? Nancy contemplates her move and eventually decides to attack Chris with both of her Sinew Slivers. Chris blocks 1 of them with his Hatchling and takes a total of 3 damage after lifelink. Nancy then shoots my flyer with Lightning Bolt. Chris casts Pillar of the Sleepless on Nancy's Muscle Sliver and attacks her for 4 with his Thrall, gaining 4 life. On my turn, I cast Thoughtcast for 1 since I have 4 artifacts. I then cast the card that's been in my effing hand all game and costs all of 1 mana, Vidalcan Surtark. I equip up a Homunculus and attack Chris for 4. I cast Ardent Recruit and equip it. On Nancy's turn, she untaps and loses a life from the Pillory Clinton. Nancy casts Hive Stirrings and makes 2 5/5 slivers. Yeah, She cast a card that cost 3 mana and it gave her 2 5/5 slivers. Not really sure how you beat that. Nancy attacks Chris for 10 and kills him, falling off the Pillar of the Sleepless. On my turn, not really sure how I get out of this. I start by casting Preordain to see what my options are. I then cast Thoughtcast to draw 2 cards. I then attack for 5 with my Recruit. Nancy is forced to block since she has so little life. I then cast Auriok Sunchaser and equip it with Bone Splitter. So, if I can attack, or if I can survive Nancy's next attack, I win because she has no way to deal with my flyer. Let's see what happens. It is completely over when Nancy casts another Might Sliver, which I thought she might do. All of Nancy's slivers are currently getting +7/+7. That is insane. You do realize this is Peasant, right? Nancy attacks me, tapping down a guy first. 4 attackers get through to combat, but I can only block 3 of them, and they're so big that any one of them getting through would kill me. I take 8 damage, winning the game for Nancy and her slivers. For the recap, Chris said afterwards that his hand was pretty awkward since he had multiple Pillory of the Sleeplesses in hand, but they don't really stop Nancy's slivers because the other slivers still get the bonuses and my guys have the equipment I can move around. Unmake was a godsend for Chris, but he only drew the 1. All of us were doing a pretty modest amount of attacking and damage throughout the game, but there actually was not a lot of blocking. Chris's life gain from his Morning Thrall was keeping him alive for most of the game, and if he would have untapped with the Voracious Hatchling, he probably would have won, gaining 10 life every turn. Blue mana earlier in the game would have done wonders for me since I would have had the Surtark and could have tapped down Chris's life linkers. Not really sure how I would have dealt with Nancy's huge slivers though. Oh well, that's the game. Hope you enjoyed it. Let's clone head out.